Okay, to discuss this further here in the studio with me is Dr. Lee Jones, Associate Professor in International Politics at Queen Mary University of London and a leading expert on Myanmar. Thanks very much, Dr. Jones, for joining us. I mean, these are very serious claims that are being made by Amnesty International, but at the same time, nothing that we haven't really heard before.
No, I mean, there's nothing that's in the report that's particularly surprising, although the details are well documented and they're really shocking and in many cases absolutely nauseating. The report is very thorough. It's based on hundreds of interviews, eyewitness testimonies, aerial photographs, forensic investigations and so on. What it does is it lays out the scale of the atrocities that were inflicted on the Rohingya population by the Myanmar army and the border guard police and also Rakhine ethnic militias too.
The finger of blame is at the 13 of these top military generals, but of course there are so many others who are involved.
Yeah, and the report does actually name some people, very low-ranking officers, a particular corporal who's accused, for example, of many acts of torture and also burning down villages and attacking and killing people. So the list of people who are actually actively involved goes right the way from the lowest soldier right up to the commander-in-chief, according to Amnesty.
Of course, there was a lot of hype when the 700,000 fled and the focus of the international community was on it. But do you think that pressure has been sustained? Because there are now calls for a referral to the ICC, something that Myanmar has dodged.
The difficulty with the ICC, and that's what Amnesty is saying should be referred to the ICC, is one must either self-refer, which Myanmar certainly will not do. No. So, or you can be referred by the United Nations Security Council, and almost certainly China and probably also Russia would veto that. And it's not been the case so far that the Western states are in a mood to confront China and put it and back it into a corner over that. But the scale of the atrocities documented in this report are likely to increase pressure on Western governments from NGOs, parliaments and the general public to take more action. And we've seen also the European Union last week, put sanctions on 7 senior military officials. And so I imagine pressure for targeted sanctions on those individuals named in the report will also increase.
And of course, today we heard from the UN rights envoy saying that, the agreements that were made for these people to be repatriated, that hasn't actually happened.
There's very little repatriation. The reality is there cannot be safe, voluntary and dignified return for the refugees who cross the border in the conditions that currently prevail in Rakhine State, when we've had villages being bulldozed, replaced by army outposts. There's very little opportunity for these people to return. The reality is they will be returned into concentration camps. Nobody would voluntarily do that, and that's the real difficulty.
And the guarantee that they would be safe?
Well, indeed. I mean, the police were some of the main perpetrators of the violence against the Rohingya population, the military also, and then local communities too. I mean, they just cannot be guaranteed for their safety, their livelihood and their security, even though their conditions in the camps in Bangladesh are dire. And with the monsoon rains, that's making the situation even worse. They obviously feel safer on that side of the border.
Indeed. And of course, there was a lot of discussion swirling around Aung San Suu Kyi, her responsibilities. Where do you think she now sits on this?
I mean, I think basically she's a political realist. She realises that there is almost nobody in Myanmar society who particularly feels sympathetic towards the Rohingya. As amazing as that may seem, the vast majority of the population do not believe that the Rohingya are part of Myanmar society. They look at them as illegal Bengali immigrants from Bangladesh, and they've been progressively dehumanised over the course of the last few decades. Even among the other ethnic groups in Myanmar that have been persecuted and treated very similarly to the Rohingya, there is amazingly little sympathy. So she's in a difficult position, but I also think that she has not provided really any moral leadership on this question. I think it's not a priority for her. Her priorities lie elsewhere with the other ethnic groups and the so-called peace process and the attempts to revise the constitution to create more space for the civilian government, which also is going nowhere. I mean, in the end, I think the Aung San Suu Kyi government is turning out to be a busted flush.
Indeed. Dr. Lee Jones, thank you for all your analysis there. Now to other stories making headlines.